That internal back and forth, the debate that just goes round and round, and the procrastination when you know there's this crucial conversation you need to have.
You just can't make yourself do it.
Exactly. You can't lean into it, and it just sits there, unresolved. It's this low hum of discomfort all day.
Draining your energy, even when you're not actively thinking about it. It's pretty universal, that feeling. And actually, Coach Ed Padalecki has a great name for it, something he picked up from his old mentor. He calls it the sweaty 5-minute conversation.
Sweaty 5-minute conversation. I like that. It captures the feeling perfectly.
It really does. And we're not talking about just, any difficult chat.
Right.
These are those specific moments, those pivotal ones. They often feel longer than they are, but they demand real clarity and courage.
Right.
Grit, really.
Yeah, grit. That's the word. Because most people, their instinct is just to pull back, to avoid it.
Totally. It's not about intelligence or caring. It's fundamentally about being unwilling to face like a few minutes of intense emotional discomfort.
Which is fascinating because when you look at high performers, business leaders, coaches, elite athletes, that willingness is the difference maker.
It's exactly where they set themselves apart. That's what we want to dive into today.
Okay.
Why these conversations are essential, especially for peak performance, and how the best performers approach them differently.
So this is kind of a shortcut for our listeners. Tools to navigate these tough but potentially really transformative interactions, whatever field you're in.
Precisely. Consider this your guide to those sweaty 5 minutes.
Okay, so let's start with the problem of delay. Coach Padalecki talks about this buildup of resistance the longer you wait. He calls it psychological friction. Can you unpack that a bit?
That psychological friction idea is powerful. It's not just that you're not acting. The delay itself creates this active force against you.
Okay, active force. How so?
Well, when you put it off, self-doubt starts creeping in. The anxiety about the conversation kind of balloons, gets way bigger than the actual issue often. And you just find yourself drifting further from actually resolving anything. Think about needing to talk to a teammate about their performance. If you delay a week, that small issue starts to, fester. You start second-guessing, should I even say anything? Is it really a big deal?
Right, you minimize it in your own head.
Exactly. Or the other person keeps doing the thing, maybe thinking you're okay with it because you haven't said anything. So the problem doesn't just wait quietly. It compounds. It gets heavier.
That makes total sense, that feeling of it getting heavier. It's almost tiring, just carrying it around unresolved. So how do high performers then, how do they break that cycle, override that instinct to retreat?
That's where Coach P introduces this really interesting concept. Speed is a force.
Speed is a force. Okay, not like physics speed.
No, not physics. It's performance psychology. The idea is, in those moments, high performers get that hesitation is, it's costly. They don't just react fast. They choose to engage quickly.
So they close the gap fast, act while the issue is still, like you said, hot.
Exactly. While it's still emotionally relevant, they know waiting for it to feel comfortable is a trap.
Because comfortable never really comes, does it?
Right. Or if it does, the problem's often way bigger. So that speed, combined with courage, it does something important. It generates psychological momentum.
Momentum, okay.
By acting fast, you basically short-circuit your brain's tendency to overthink and, imagine the worst-case scenario.
You stop the downward spiral of doubt.
You got it. You commit to action in that critical window, and it disarms the resistance before it really digs in. It pushes you toward resolution instead of letting you drift.
Like a coach seeing an attitude issue and addressing it right away and not letting it spread.
Perfect example. The speed creates momentum for correction, not for more dysfunction.
Okay, so the impulse is to pull back, but high performers lean in using speed. How? How do they manage that lean in? Coach Padalecki has this practical tool. Let's break that down. It sounds key.
It really is. A very powerful framework. W.O.O.P, it stands for wish, outcome, obstacle, and plan.
All right, let's walk through it. Maybe use an example, like a manager needing to give tough feedback on a project.
Perfect. Classic sweaty 5-minute scenario. So, wish, what do you want from the conversation? And Coach P stresses making it positive.
Not just get this over with.
Definitely not. For the manager, the wish might be something like, I want clarity on expectations, renewed commitment to the deadline, and actually strengthen our working relationship through this. Specific, positive, relational.
Okay, got the wish. What's next?
Next is outcome. This is about picturing the positive feeling or result for you if you handle it well. even if the other person reacts poorly.
Ah, so it's internal.
Exactly. For the manager, it's not just the project getting fixed, but maybe feeling pride in their leadership, their courage, their integrity in having the conversation.
Like, I showed up how I wanted to show up.
Precisely. It shifts focus from controlling the other person to owning your own actions and values. I'll feel proud of how I handled this, whatever happens.
That's a powerful reframe. Okay, wish, outcome, then obstacle. This feels like the tricky part.
It is, but it's crucial. This is where you look squarely at the hurdles, internal and external.
So for the manager?
Internally, maybe nervousness, fear of hurting feelings, worrying about stumbling over words. Externally, the team member might get defensive, emotional, disagree entirely.
You anticipate the potential storm.
Right. It's realistic preparation, not denial. You see the rocks so you can steer around them.
Okay. And finally, the plan. Knowing the wish, outcome, and obstacles, what's the actual plan?
The plan gives you concrete steps. For our manager, it might be, okay, first, take 3 deep breaths. Anchor myself. Lead with care and clarity. Acknowledge their work first, then give the feedback. Start with curiosity. How do you feel the project's going? Before stating my concerns.
So it's not a rigid script, but like guardrails.
Exactly. A flexible framework to stay grounded, focused, even if things get bumpy.
That's super practical. Beyond W.O.O.P, Coach Padalecki also uses these mindset mantras, right? Bring it on, and I'm excited.
These aren't just platitudes.
No, not at all. There's solid science there. Researchers like Amy Cuddy, Kelly McGonigal, they've shown this stuff works. The physical feelings, sweaty palms, racing heart, they're basically the same for fear and excitement. The difference is the label your brain puts on it. So instead of thinking I'm anxious, you can consciously relabel it I'm excited or I'm ready.
And that changes your body's response.
It literally shifts you from a threat state, that fight or flight, to a challenge state, more approach-oriented. You harness the energy instead of being overwhelmed by it. So an athlete before a game or someone walking into a negotiation, changing nervous to excited actually impacts performance.
Profoundly. It's a psychological tool.
Okay, this is all great, really valuable, but here's the big but for a lot of people, myself included sometimes. What if it just goes wrong, like spectacularly wrong?
The fear of the fiasco.
Exactly. And Coach P has a pretty surprising story about this, doesn't he?
He really does. It kind of flips the script because he asks, what happens when that sweaty 5-minute conversation turns into like a sweaty 30-minute disaster?
Okay.
And he admits very candidly that the absolute worst, most train-wreck conversation he ever had was with the very mentor who taught him this whole principle.
No way. The guy who gave him the concept.
The very same. Talk about irony. He describes it as a total fiasco.
Wow. What happened? What made it so bad?
He said it was just full of tension, huge misunderstandings that ended really hard, really unresolved, not just awkward, but genuinely painful. He walked away feeling awful, second-guessing everything.
Sounds like a nightmare scenario. The exact thing people fear.
Totally bombed it. By his own account, not a success story in that moment. You can just picture it cross wires, emotions flaring, nothing landing right.
So he failed. But then comes the twist, the unexpected win he talks about.
Right, because despite how bad it felt, how much it stung in the moment, Coach Padalecki says he's so glad he had that conversation. He calls it a crash, but insists it was foundational.
Foundational. How?
It taught him more about emotional intelligence, about real humility, about navigating conflict than any easy or perfect conversation ever could have.
Because he had to pick through the wreckage.
Exactly. He had to analyze his own part, his reactions, his assumptions, his communication failures, things you just don't examine when everything goes smoothly. He had to process the failure, integrate those really hard lessons. It shows how failure can be an incredible teacher.
It really makes me think of that Joseph Campbell quote. Over and over again, you are called to the realm of adventure. Each time there is the same problem. Do I dare? There is always the possibility of a fiasco, but there's also the possibility of bliss.
That quote fits perfectly. The fiasco is part of the adventure, isn't it?
You have to dare.
And often that's where the deepest learning hides, being willing to step into that discomfort, knowing it might go sideways, because the growth is worth it. That's a core part of the high-performer mindset.
Which circles us right back to Coach P's challenge, today's 1% better daily. So the call to action for you listening, it's direct, maybe a little uncomfortable. Is there a conversation you've been putting off?
We all have one.
Probably.
And that discomfort you feel when you think about it. Try to see it not as a wall, but as a doorway.
A doorway. I like that.
A doorway to growth, to deeper connection, to being a more effective leader or teammate, or just a more whole person. It's something to step through.
Not around. And when you decide to step through, remember the tools. Breathe. Regulate your system.
Use that W.O.O.P protocol. Wish, outcome, obstacle, plan, get clear.
Then step in with presence, with courage, and with real curiosity about the other person too.
Because here's the bottom line, the real takeaway. Whether it ends in perfect resolution or whether it's messy and becomes harder in learning, you will come out stronger.
Right.
Like Coach Padalecki says, you either win or you learn. There's no real loss when you engage courageously, only progress.
So let's aim to be those people, the leaders, the teammates, the humans who show up when it matters, even if our palms get a little sweaty.
Absolutely. And maybe the final thought to leave you with is this. What's actually the greater cost? The temporary discomfort, those sweaty 5 minutes, or the ongoing cost, the compounding resistance, the lost trust, the missed potential of leaving something important unresolved? Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. We hope this gives you some food for thought as you continue on your journey.